Thank you very much for a wonderful session with experiences of the other countries and nations. We are now proceeding with the program to our last formal session of the day, which is a national workshop on housing and human settlements core competencies. I will request before kicking off with the work, I was advised that Dr. Myeni from University of KwaZulu Natal is with us to please proceed to the front. The universities will be doing some presentations and we will take it from there. But also to apologize to the colleagues, they are part of the conference, who are part of this session, who are working virtually. I will be working with Ms. Sulufelo Rasetlago in terms of the floor directing. Yeah, but I will be facilitating. This is a workshop. It's not some of the presentations, the sessions that are coming from that are engaging on a number of subjects. This is a special workshop that the board of the Institute, on the way to this conference seminar, has approved that we also undertake. Very briefly, this workshop is slightly different from the other sessions, as it has been indicated. It's a workshop. We are aware, I think it has been also mentioned earlier the day, that the journey for professionalization of the human settlement sector in South Africa, and one of the activities was the establishment of chairs. I think the Deputy Minister made mention of that as well. And our program director in the opening session spoke to that. And within that, universities introduced human settlements qualifications in South Africa, undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications. And we are also aware at the same time that the housing qualifications have been existing in South Africa for some time. Of course, as we also understand that the professionalization of this sector didn't commence with the introduction of the human settlement qualifications. There was previously an Institute of Housing for Southern Africa, and within that space or that time period, there were already housing qualifications at undergrad and even at master's level across South African universities. We are aware about that. But what has come true, also to the attention of the Institute, is that two of its membership wings, yes, are affected by an issue in relation to the qualifications. The issue is about the ability of the graduates to enter with ease the labor market, in particular the sector, which is the sector of human settlements and housing, which their qualifications are seemingly seeking to address. In fact, in terms of curriculum development traditions, there is one tradition called deliberative curriculum design in higher education studies, wherein a particular sector in the labor market would be persuaded, would persuade an institution or create an institution, a training institution, to generate particular set of knowledges and skills in support of the agenda of that particular sector, which then means that, which says that in a deliberative curriculum tradition on curriculum design, it therefore means that that institution shall have established a training program in response to a particular labor market skills demand. I'm raising this because the issue around the ability of the graduates of housing and human settlements to enter the housing and human sector in South Africa universities are going to do presentation. We are, as an institute, trying to understand it within the context of what we call a deliberative curriculum design tradition amongst the major 5 traditions. That's one thing I want to mention in the beginning, that that issue itself has also raised some emotions. We need to understand it clearly and closely. In my home language, we say that we have to come close to where the calf has died, in terms of understanding clearly what could be the issue with regards to the ability, what are the factors that are limiting the ability of the graduates to enter this sector of their academic prestige, if we're to follow that tradition of curriculum design. So we have that on one hand. But again, as universities, we are also aware that in terms of academic program development, universities do not develop programs for today. They develop programs to respond to the labor market needs today and into the future. So these are not quick fix mechanisms, short courses by fly-by-night institutions, if I could be tempted to divert a bit. These are programs which are seeking to address broader development goals in a nation and beyond a single nation. Our graduates should be able to access opportunities not only in South Africa as universities. They should be able to land into work opportunities across the African continent and other parts of the globe. And we begin to see that as universities with other academic programs that we are running alongside this program, with our graduates crossing the stage to be kept today and being grabbed by countries also in Europe and also in Africa. It is not, therefore, a qualification for South Africa. It is a qualification to ensure that there are skills, both in South Africa, there is knowledge in South Africa to address the agenda of sustainable, just and resilient cities and human settlements, SDG 11. I want us to make that very briefly, that background as we enter this workshop, because as the IHSA and also the academic forums in IHSA, that is also one other understanding. We need, therefore, to gravitate to where the calf has died. By understanding through this workshop, it may not be able today to engage all issues and exhaust them in an hour and a half, if I could say. But we said that let us begin this process of responding to this issue. It's not for the first time this issue has been raised also in a conference in IHSA. It was raised in an African Regional Student Conference in October 2021, where there was a long discussion around the employability of graduates with practitioners who were part of that workshop in person and also virtually. So we are not engaged in this matter for the first time in this platform. But universities within the academic forum of IHSA have agreed also to make this presentation. Our intention is to consolidate these presentations and therefore from them as IHSA find a way of taking them forward with the labor market. I need to make that point. We've got presenters from different universities. We'll start with the first presentation that we requested one of the professionals who is also guest lecturing in our university and is also part of the affordable housing global classroom that we are running at Myeni University in the US, Mr. Fezile Flatela, practicing in East London, and who has worked in the three spheres of government in South Africa as primarily a land surveyor and a town planner, who has also worked in the spaces of housing policy planning and research, who has also managed actual implementation of housing projects in Buffalo City Metropole before going out to practice privately. So we requested Mr. Flatela to, within 15 to 20 minutes, to do a presentation of the housing development process. You might want to call it a value chain, the start to finish first. Why did we do that? We want to preface the presentations by universities on the core competencies with that presentation first. Can we get Mr. Flatela on to take us or deliver his input on the housing delivery process? Why that process? That process in it calls for a particular set of skills, knowledges, and competences. And therefore, in the presentations to follow, we'll be seeking to understand what are these competences, skills, and perhaps knowledges that are possessed by graduates when they exit universities. Where do they fit in the housing development value chain primarily? But also we do understand that we're talking not only housing, we're talking human settlement in its broadest sense. So we're trying to locate the graduates' competences and skills within that framework, I think, in this workshop. I will allow Mr. Flatela, I hope he's online, to take us through his presentation.
Good afternoon. I'm Fezile Flatela, as already indicated. I'll be trying to, I'm not sure if the host will once more, good afternoon. I'm Fezile Flatela. I'll be taking you through the project process of housing. With that, I'll be acknowledging and recognizing the project process guide for human settlements programs 2017. With that, if you can just go to the next slide. As indicated, the purpose will be to outline the housing development process in South Africa, as well as the key professionals facilitating development activity for each activity in the value chain, as well as trying what I think it might be the role or is the role of human settlement professionals in housing development value chain. If you can just go straight to slide 28. Yes. So in terms of the processes, the project itself takes a minimum of 4 years to complete from start to finish. And some may take even 20 years due to the issues or aspects that have not been addressed right through the processes. If you can just move on. That is the process as we can see it. It consists of few milestones, which includes feasibility, which I'll be talking to. It talks to the planning and statutory approvals that are required. Some of the activities, you'll see that they are common, whether it's a government implemented projects or it's a private implemented projects. Then there is another phase, which is people beneficiary assessment, allocation and approvals. There, before you go to implementation and handing over. Thank you. Next slide. Then if we talk feasibility, for instance, as you can see under the expertise column, I have highlighted the housing, the human sector practitioner, their roles, where I can see it. Then on feasibility, the first activity there will be the pre-feasibility assessment, where you take from the identified needs in terms of the instruments like your housing needs register, your IDP, as well as the housing chapter or sector plan that the municipalities are developing. So that is the legislation that calls for that process. Then from there is a need to identify the status quo, where you define the demand. That assessment requires to be done, and in terms of those legislation I've indicated there, and that is where the professionals can play a role. The identified skills for that would be your research and analytical skills, at IDP development stage that are required in the identification of the need and the demand. Then there will be an initial identification of potential beneficiaries in terms of the Housing Act, of which that is an administrative role that the professionals can play in terms of the housing code understanding, as well as the social facilitation skills will be required in terms of that. That is still the pre-feasibility. Now, if we move to the next slide, it will be an activity 2, which is the actual subsidy application, where the spheres of government play a role at that stage. It's where the MEC for Human Settlements provincial receives provincial housing subsidy allocation from national. So those are the 2 spheres in terms of the Housing Act and the Division of Revenue Act. So the facilitation of that, or the interaction of that, that's where the housing human settlements professional can play a role. Then in the same at the same time, the municipality would apply for reservation of the project funding in line with their IDP that they apply from either national or province, depending on who is the developer. Usually it is the municipality. Then the MEC would confirm the reservation of the project funding. So those are the legislation prescripts that play a role in that. That is the Housing Act, DORA, Municipal Financial Management Act, or Public Financial Management Act. Then in terms of skills, housing policy understanding is required, public administration, local government law, project management skills. I think the project management is also very important for their curriculum in order to equip them in terms of implementation and administration. Then the municipality would obviously procure the land for land availability proposals. That's where the identification of suitably located land, which would play a role in the integration of our societies, as well as the transformation of spatial structure as we do with the implementation. Then there would be the adjudication, obviously, through their procurement processes. Then if we go to the next slide, still the subsidy application, it's when the MEC would adjudicate conditional approval of the project funding in terms of MFMA, PFMA, DORA. That's where the public administration, local government law, and national treasury regulations, as well as public sector procurement, play a role. Then the project itself, after that process has been done, it needs to be enrolled with the national NHBRC, which is National Housing National Home Builders Regulatory Council. That one is required in terms of the Housing Act, as well as Housing Consumer Protection Measures Act 95 of 1998, and the Geoscience Act, as well as the Engineering Professions Act, play a role there. That's where these professionals can also play a role on that, as well as the project manager in the project management, as well as the geotech engineer. So on that, project management skills are also required, project management administration skills, as well as the specialized skills like soil and rock mechanics by the engineers. If we move on, the MEC would confirm the project subsidy approval now to the developer, either the municipality or a private developer in terms of that. Then the adjudication of land, as well as the municipality as a developer would choose the procurement strategy that would, to implement the project itself. Then if we move to the next slide, then is the second milestone, which I indicated, which is the planning and statutory approval. It takes about 447 days, which activity one would be the obtain to obtain base mapping information. That's where land survey comes in terms of producing the topographical map, in terms of the Land Survey Act. Then the conveyancer as well will compile a conveyancer's report which confirms the registration status of that particular land, whether there are restrictions to develop such or the servitude that are there in terms of the Deeds Registry Act. Then the civil engineer on the other side would compile a civil engineering report confirming the availability of services and capacity for that particular development. That would take into account availability of water, sewer, roads, and stormwater. Then if we move on, the electrical engineer would also be required to produce a report on the availability of power supply and capacity, given the challenges that we have currently of load shedding. Then as part of base mapping as well, the geotechnical investigation report would be required in order to confirm the foundation designs and the stability of soils in terms of that, as well as other studies that might be required. That include heritage assessment, study, traffic impact assessment, as well, and all. Then if we move to the next slide, the other statutory requirement would be the environmental impact studies, which usually take a very long time. That's where the National Environmental Management Act plays a role, regulates that, and the environmental scientists does that. Then if we can move, I won't be dwelling much because this is a long process. If you can move to slide 42. That is the stage where the environmental authorization at the end of the day would be granted in terms of the National Environmental Management Act by the competent authority, being the Department of Environmental Affairs. So that is where the environmental authorization must be obtained, and no development can commence without that approval. Otherwise, it is both a criminal and a civil offense to do that. And then that is the environmental authorization, which gives a leeway for any appeals that might come in. Then if we move to the activity 3 slide, which is now the compilation, submission, and approval of land development applications, which also takes a number of days as well. That is where the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act comes in, where the town planner would be defining the planning parameters for that particular development. And it is a stage where the layout of a settlement is being designed and developed. Importantly, that is where the other amenities must kick in. And these layouts, even before submission, they are presented to the communities of beneficiaries in order for them to see if everything has been accommodated that they need. And also the other services might be outside that particular land, which you might not need to design for, but they are within the reachable range. So those are the considerations in terms of integration, socially, and in terms of the infrastructure that is taken into account. Then, as part of that process, there is a refinement of potential project beneficiary list in terms of the Housing Act. That is where the professionals also can play a role at that stage, as well as the project management and social facilitation skills are required for that. Then the engineers and planners would also test the layout plan against the engineering requirements and all that process. If we can move to the next stage, which at the end of the day, that layout and the SPLUMA application will be submitted to the local authority for approval. And no surveying or pegging can commence before that process. Then if you move to activity 4 slide, that includes the land surveying and the conveyancing. They also take their own a period in terms of those legislation framework. That's where the land surveyor would do the pegging, would prepare the diagram or general plan for submission to the Surveyor General, and all that process until the approval in the next stage. Then as one is doing that, you'll find that some land parcels have got their title deeds having restrictions to develop that particular development. So in terms of SPLUMA and the Deeds Registries Act, those restrictions need to be removed as a process. So the planner and conveyancer will play a role in that until the stage of gazetting that particular registration. So those are the processes that play a role. And then there will be a stage on the next slide where the opening of register will be done by a conveyancer for that particular township that needs to be developed at the Deeds Office in terms of Deeds Registries Act, as well as drafting of conveyancing applications. So we're working towards now obtaining the individual title deeds for each beneficiary by doing this. So the conveyancer now would submit the approved diagram and general plan to the Deeds Office in that process. Then the lodgement will be done at Deeds Office in terms of that legislation, Deeds Registry Act. Then the conveyancing procedures will take place where the conveyancer will be preparing the individual title deeds. Then the registration of those particular new sites will take place at that stage. Then the milestone 3, if you go to the...
Yeah, you'll have to pace up a bit. We're running out of time for the presentation.
Noted.
Yes.
So that milestone C is where the beneficiary assessment, allocation, and approval takes place, of which the practitioners can play a role on that. Then once that is done, then the implementation, I think that is slide number 59, take place in terms of land servicing. The engineers will be playing a role on that. That is the civil engineers. Then the land servicing will be completed. Then the house construction, once the services have been done, then the house construction is only then that the house construction can take place. Up until a stage where the housing, the handing over will take place, as well as other contractual processes between the beneficiary, between the developer, as well as the municipality and other role players will take place. So I don't want to dwell much. However, those are the processes that are required before the house is completed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Flatela, for that contribution. It's a useful contribution. Also, the presentation, we received it, will be shared with the participants of the workshop, and in particular with the universities that are offering these programs. Thanks for that. We will be moving, we won't be taking questions on Mr. Flatela, But if you are able to stay for quite long, I know there are also data issues and stuff and connectivity issues from where you are. It might not be possible, but we'll take note of those questions if any would come to you. But they shouldn't be questions to Mr. Flatela, because what you are presenting is what happens in practice. It's not something that is imagined or should be happening. It's how development in housing delivery happens in practice, within which we're attempting to fit in the graduates of housing and human settlements. We'll be taking presentations, but I will request a process that one university will present, and a student and a graduate of that university, I hope the ushers are ready, I will invite them to make a comment. In particular, the graduates from that university who are with us today. One graduate, not all. One student and one graduate will make a comment. Why I'm saying this, we'll be taking the presentation from Natal University by Dr. Nadia Wessels, who's a senior lecturer in the university and also teaching in the program. She came in early in the Department of Buildings and Human Settlements, even before I joined the university, and therefore was also part of the early years of the introduction of the qualification and its translation into an implemented program after SAQA approved. She will be doing a presentation. But before Dr. Wessels come in, for all university presenters, we've got something we want to respond to through this presentation. Also taking note of the inputs by Mr. Flatela. Mainly two. There could be a third one. But for today, want to respond. One is, having undergone this form of training, what does a graduate know? We would want to get that coming across in the talk. What does a graduate know? Two, what can a graduate do with what she or he knows? If that could be responded to. As IPSA and the students chapter, we will deal perhaps in future or as we journey forward on how can a graduate do that better. We're dealing with knowledge, skills, and attributes. But for this evening, we want only to focus on knowledge and skills that are coming across in the qualification. What does the graduate know? And what can he or she do with what he knows? Because that's what the labor market, the potential employers are wanting to hear out of the presentation. We'll be taking first university within 15 minutes, National University, and then invite one graduate and one student, if any available today, to make a comment on what is being presented as the outcomes of that qualification. We welcome Dr. Nadia Wessels. I hope you're online to take us through within the next 15 minutes. It can be 10 minutes if possible, I know, but the maximum will be 15 minutes. Over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Prof. I'm just going to share my screen. I just want to check, are you able to see the screen?
No, not yet, but maybe it's coming.
Okay, I can see it on my side, so I'll just wait a while.
Yes, we are with you, Nadia.
Okay, all right. So thanks very much, Prof, and good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so without too much further ado, basically a little bit of what I had decided to speak about this afternoon. A lot of it has been covered, but basically this is what I wanted to cover. Just providing a general context, a general overview related to human settlements, what has actually led to the development of the various housing and human settlement related qualifications. And I think that's really been touched on quite a lot today already, so I won't spend too much time on that. Then looking at the Bachelor of Human Settlement Development at Nelson Mandela University, a brief outline. It's a 4-year degree, compulsory 4-year honors degree. So I'll just speak a little bit about that. And then focusing on what are the exit level or core outcomes, and if there are any questions. I'm not sure we'll take general questions right at the end. Okay, so just some general observations and challenges to sustainable human settlements. A lot of this, as I've said, these issues have already been discussed. So just briefly, the disintegration of services in terms of infrastructure, health, a whole range of facilities, social facilities, as well as the discrepancies in the provision and maintenance on services. And some of those are based on colonial and apartheid planning, but even post-apartheid, a lot of these problems have perpetuated. The housing backlogs and the inadequate budget expenditure, and a lot of these challenges are interrelated. So, for example, challenges related to capacity in terms of both technical and management very often result in inadequate budget expenditure, even when there is a budget available. And we all know the capacity varies between the different spheres of government and between different municipalities. There are some that are better off than others for obvious reasons. Also, the political instability and how that has a significant impact on institutional instability and therefore on service delivery. We're seeing that more and more in South Africa. And these are challenges applicable to the global South generally, but also to the South African context. I think there's a lot more acknowledgement of the environmental concerns, recognizing our finite resources, the fact that we've just heard recently that the global population is 8 billion, which means that that has significant implications for human settlements and the provision of sustainable human settlements. We know that the majority of that population growth is going to be in the global South and more particularly in Sub-Saharan Africa. So we in Sub-Saharan Africa are going to face increasing more challenges, and of course the concerns of climate change. So the complexities of human settlement management and development have already been highlighted. A lot has been said about the fact that yes, a house is an important component, but it's not only about the house. There's the physical side, the social side, the psychological side. And I think that's really reflected in the definition of sustainable human settlements that the National Department of then Housing adopted in 2008. So where they define sustainable human settlements as well-managed entities where economic growth and social development are in balance with the carrying capacity of the natural systems of which they depend for existence and result in sustainable development, wealth creation, poverty alleviation, and equity. So that really encapsulates what we should be doing in terms of the kind of human settlements that we are providing. So the essence of the Bachelor Human Settlement Development Program is to capacitate graduates so that they can provide human settlements that are well planned, there's sound infrastructure, they're socially acceptable, economically viable, environmentally sustainable, and they have political and very importantly institutional support, because that component is often forgotten about. And if we can do all of this, then that will help contribute to better quality of life and a much more stable and productive society. So very briefly, the purpose of the degree was really to address these challenges and to acknowledge the holistic nature of the provision of sustainable human settlements. So it's to provide graduates with specialist knowledge, skills, and competencies that are necessary to speed up the housing delivery or human settlement delivery. It does focus on South Africa, but as Prof. Mbanga has already said there is an international context as well. It's intended to equip graduates to not only provide new sustainable human settlements, but also to look at upgrading and the maintenance of human settlements. And that's also been touched on quite a bit. So there's the physical as well as the social side of maintenance. And the importance of working together with the built environment and related professionals. And I think the process that Fezile has just explained really helps understand the multidisciplinary nature of the provision of sustainable human settlements. Also to manage and coordinate the various human settlement processes that have been referred to, and that very importantly includes the involvement of all stakeholders and particularly the beneficiary communities that need to be involved as soon as possible in the process. A lot has already been said about the professional body, so not only the institute, but also the need for a council to be established to help professionalize the sector and that's an important component as well of the professional qualifications. Okay, so in terms of the qualification, it's knowledge and theory based as much as possible. It is based on practical experience, so it's practice orientated. There is no duplication of other degrees or other professions. Obviously, it's necessary to touch on what other professions do. It's important that the graduates have an understanding of what the different professionals involved in the entire human settlement development process, what their roles and responsibilities are. It is a multidisciplinary degree at Nelson Mandela University, so there's the involvement of many faculties, not only the engineering faculty. There is a focus on housing, but seeing housing as an integral component of the provision of sustainable human settlements. The focus is based on where the problem really lies in terms of housing and human settlement. The focus is on getting graduates to be employed in the public sector as well as the social housing sector. It's not to say that they cannot work for consultants, not at all, but obviously we know that the degree was essentially developed to address the concerns that have been raised in the public sector. As I've said, the degree is internationally comparable, but it is focused on the global south. And then our program director, Sijekula, has already referred to how the degree was first started at Nelson Mandela University. Well, the bachelor's degree, I'm not saying there weren't the housing-related degrees already available, and how the Education for Chair was established and sponsored by the National Department of Human Settlements. So very briefly, I've got a few slides just on the outline of the degree, what happens in the first, second, and third and fourth year. I don't want to go through them in too much detail unless there's specific questions. Just to say that, like I think most degrees at university, the first year is really an introduction, and it's a very general. As a student, you get a general understanding of aspects, and for some students, I know that first year is very almost too abstract, because you need to first provide that context in order to really understand the detail later on. So the first year is more general, understanding the context. So you'll see the first two, the subjects, or what we call modules, human settlement management and public administration, they are repeated throughout the 4 years and further developed on. And as one goes through the years, there's more focus on the practical issues in terms of the housing and housing construction and management. So if there are questions later on related to these, we can have a look at them. So again, you can see second year, third year, again, human settlement management, public administration. So that's an important component of the degree. You can see then in the second year, subjects like housing design and services are introduced, business management, sociology in both first and second years, and also importance of law. So there's a law component in both first and second year. In the final year, you can see just briefly focus on integrated development management, again, law, and students, fourth year students have to complete a research treatise in their final year before qualifying. And then just the following slides, just very briefly, and again, I'm not going to speak to all of these in detail, but just to highlight how, so human settlement management, for example, that is if I can refer to it as the umbrella name for the subject, and then it's divided up into semester modules, and those issues, aspects are looked at in more detail. And on the next few slides, you can see where new is written in red. This is subjects or modules that were specifically developed for the program. So as I've said, for example, public administration, those modules and subjects were already in existence, and they are given by the public administration department. So that's a different faculty. So as I said, it is it's across the faculties at Nelson Mandela University. Again, so this is the second year. You can see again the new ones. You can see in the second year, housing design and services it's introduced, focusing on, really starting to focus on those construction related issues. Again, third year, and you can see again the new subjects that were introduced, specifically developed for the human settlement program. And then the fourth year. Okay, so just in terms of moving on now, what I think is really the important component is the exit level or core outcomes of graduates. So what I'm going to present in the next few slides is the general core outcomes. There are obviously outcomes for each specific module, but that would take too long to go through in detail, but we can just always discuss that later on. Obviously, the application of the competencies or core outcomes are also dependent on where graduates are employed. So if you're working for an NGO or social housing institution, your competencies will be quite different to if you're working, for example, in the national or provincial level of government, where you are probably more involved in policy directive and policy formulation. So I'll just go through them briefly. So the importance of knowledge integration. So the importance of being able to integrate knowledge to plan, facilitate, manage the social, economic, and environmental development towards the provision of sustainable integrated human settlement development. So really acknowledging the holistic nature, not only focusing on one component, but being able to realize and recognize the social, economic, and environmental and physical components. The importance of being able to incorporate human settlements into municipal integrated development plans, so include the necessary aspects in the integrated development plan and make sure that the human settlement needs and requirements are actually met and in terms of budget requirements and are implemented. The importance of public participation and facilitation, so graduates will be capable of designing, organizing, and facilitating public participation processes. And that includes negotiation with the numerous stakeholders. It also includes discussion with the various other professionals involved in the human settlement development process. Sometimes the conflict resolution and mediation and where necessary, education in terms of how to maintain houses and that kind of thing. The importance of the understanding and overseeing the technical design and construction aspects of housing infrastructure services, and that's in cooperation with other planning, built environment professionals. Obviously, the graduates are not construction management in terms of the construction management profession, but they have a good understanding of the technical design and construction aspects related to houses. Importantly, understanding the implications of the South African policy environment and the various legislative frameworks that are applicable to human settlements. And this, I think, is also a lifelong learning process, because you're certainly not going to learn all the legislation that's applicable at university, and it also is changing regularly as well. Also understanding those international imperatives, the sustainable development goals, what are the national housing and human settlement imperatives. So that those are really important at all levels or all spheres of government. Understanding how to implement the legislative frameworks and the international imperatives, and very importantly, being able to give input into legislative frameworks and policies. And I think this is going to become more and more important later on when one starts, and it's already been raised today, but already start questioning the sustainability of some of the government housing programs. Is it maybe time to relook at some of the programs, and the graduates will have an important role to play in informing that process. Knowledge of the entire human settlement process in terms of new developments, upgrading and maintenance. We say it quite flippantly, but there's quite significant difference between new greenfield developments versus upgrading and maintenance, and the practicalities often with upgrading, in situ upgrading, when people have to be relocated and sometimes communities have to be split up as well. Knowledge of the layout planning process, and importantly, understanding what are those principles that need to be implemented in layout planning that will really help ensure the provision of quality living environments. So does the layout plan provide opportunity for access to public transport, easy access to public transport, things like that. Knowledge of the land use management.
Would you wrap up, Nadia?
I will. Yes, so I've just seen you come online. Okay, knowledge of the land use management schemes, very important to have an idea of how the schemes are implemented. Knowledge of the financing sources for housing and human settlement development, ability to manage social housing institution, and then just the last slide, just general attributes that I think all professionals should have, all built environment professionals should have. So I won't go through that in detail. Just maybe to go to the last one, say the importance of being a good team player, but at the same time being able to also work independently. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Nadia. Thank you. We won't be taking questions at this point in time. We'll be moving to the next university, which is the University of Hare. Yes, Mr. Robert Mongwe, who's the program leader, according to the program, to take us through the core competencies and outcomes of that program at Hare. Over to you, Mr. Mongwe.
Thank you very much. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you yet. Maybe you still are coming.
Okay. I think that they might have removed me. I was able to see myself. Thank you very much. I think this was very elucidating, so to speak. I particularly liked the contribution by Mr. Flatela, and of course, the contribution by my colleague Nadia also illuminated the picture even more. To begin with, I want to
Are you talking or are you sharing a slide? It seems we've lost Mr. Mongwe. At Forte could be a connectivity issue. Maybe because of time, we would want to check Professor Prudence Khumalo from University of South Africa. Maybe you can step in and...
Yeah.
Oh, you're back.
Thank you. I think I'm back. You can see me now?
No.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but as a board, we can see you.
They thought that they were going to bring me on for you to be able to see me. Should I wait until you see me?
Oh, yes, we can see you.
From my end, I can see from my end.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start again.
You have 10 minutes.
I'd like to thank the three presenters who came before me, because I think that they made valuable contributions. In particular, the previous speaker made mention of the integrated and the collaborative nature of the curriculum. Mr. Flatela spoke about shall we say, the long process, the long bureaucratic process through which a housing program should go through before it actually gets off the ground. Whilst Professor Mbanga spoke about collaborative curriculum design. I think all of these are very, very important to what I am going to say. I will start by saying that, yes, at Fort Hare, we started the program in 2015, to teach it in 2015, but we started the program of curriculum design much earlier, and we were working at the time with Professor Van Wyk, also from Nelson Mandela University. And our program has got close to 19 units or courses. I don't want to load it there because I think that it will distract me. I like to have a train of thought coming directly from my mind right through to the audience. It is 19 programs or rather courses. And of course, it is also a multidisciplinary degree. It is run in a similar way like at Nelson Mandela, in the sense that although it is situated in the Faculty of the Social Sciences, we have people teaching this course from public administration, we have people teaching from law, and we've got people teaching also from statistics. So structurally then, the 2 degrees are similar. They are also similar because they try to bring together different fields and to constitute a new body of knowledge, which on the basis of which people can begin to address what in 1994 was called the housing challenge, subsequently called the human settlement challenge. The move from housing to human settlement came about because people realized that it is not only about providing the physical structure. It's not only about the physical integrity of the structure. It is actually about what we like to say at Fort Hare, settling our people. But because the whole idea of providing housing was not sufficient, this is why people then began to think of human settlement development. And we like to call it in the Institute, the idea of housing and human settlement development. In that sense, we are trying to bring together the technical and the social as well, the house and perhaps the quality of life and the integration and all of that. So this is from the point of view of starting the degree, we thought that we needed to move beyond the traditional disciplines like maybe perhaps town planning, architecture, land surveying, but without necessarily excluding them or without necessarily saying that they are not important. We needed to find a way of designing a degree that can include those bodies of knowledge, whilst also adding new ones, so that the housing and human settlement challenge in post-apartheid South Africa could be addressed from a different and from a more integrated point of departure. This is then why you would find that both at the University of Fort Hare and at Nelson Mandela University, the programs are actually multidisciplinary and therefore taught across faculties. I will not say much, a lot about the other pieces of work that I prepared to say, because my colleagues have actually eloquently stated those. So in the interest of time, I would really want to cut to the chase as other people would like to say. And then to ask the question, what kind of knowledge, therefore, is required for a post-apartheid society seeking to deal with the question of housing and the question of integrated human settlements? We historically will understand that we used to say that in the townships or in the historically disadvantaged communities, these were rows upon rows of houses, and there was no attempt to integrate socially. In other words, to use a house in order to integrate people socially and economically. And this degree at Nelson Mandela, as well as at Fort Hare, is an attempt really to integrate and to move from housing to human settlement in a very integrated fashion. Now the question arises, what kind of knowledge? From the point of Fort Hare, we from the start realized that in order to deal with this issue, we needed to be critical. We needed to be critical. This was our point of departure. So we needed to develop a body of knowledge basically anchored in the social sciences, which must take account or a critical account of how South Africa has developed in the last 300 years or even more. And to do that, we were concerned that most of the programs that might be there might not give sufficient attention to issues of history or historical consciousness. So this was one of the best or bedrocks, if one could say, of this program. We wanted to develop a program which would take into account of why are we where we are, and why is it, for example, that it is Black people in general and Africans in particular who are facing this human settlement challenge or the housing challenge. And we were asking ourselves the question, why is it that there was that housing policy was fragmented between urban and rural areas? And to that extent, therefore, this is how it came about that we designed a multi-disciplinary program like the one we have. But also, we were aware that this degree would not serve its purpose if only it could deal with the academic and the theoretical aspects or the historical aspects of why we are where we are. So if you look, for example, at courses or modules like social statistics, like project management, like financial management, monitoring and evaluation, for example, these courses or course offerings begin to move towards the issue of what, after you have gotten the historical awareness, the social consciousness, and understood how historically we have ended where we are, what kind of skills, therefore, do you need to address to address the challenge that you face? We must remember that housing, we were quite aware that in 1994, we used to think of the grand challenges facing post-apartheid South Africa. And we were saying that it is 3 of them, and I believe probably there are more, but I think there are 3 apical ones. The first one really is unemployment, high levels of unemployment. The second one, in my view, is education. And the third one, in those days, we used to say it is housing. And today we can say it is housing and human settlement development. So if you look at these grand challenges.
If you can wrap up within a minute and a half, yes.
Yeah, so if you look at these 3 grand challenges, this explains why you have modules or courses that are very, very practical, like monitoring and evaluation, financial management, project management, public administration, as well as very, very theoretical courses such as human settlement and the theory of development, such as theories of social transformation. So this is how we at Fort Hare have actually tried to integrate the two by giving a course that gives a different kind of skill, the skill to analyze how we came about where we are, and secondly, therefore to try and design a program that gives practical skills in order to enable people to really deal in a practical manner with the problems that we face. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mongwe, for that presentation. Quite informative on the curriculum content for the University of Fort Hare. I think what is coming through already that the qualifications of the 2 universities we presented are multidisciplinary, and the teachers are coming from different faculties in the university. They are not seated in one faculty, maybe like architecture or perhaps another, or economics. They are coming across. They combine all elements that will be required to create a sustainable human settlement. I think that's something first to take. But what is coming through is that there is an emphasis on how to drive integration at the different levels of planning, at a macro level in strategy, meso level of planning as well, in terms of planning for different developments, and also at a project level, how practically integration should be driven on a day-to-day basis by practitioners. Integration not only of a physical structure, but of other elements that would create a sustainable neighborhood. The issues raised around the economy. Economic development requires a facilitator. It doesn't come by itself. The layout plan might be there, providing for different land uses. Those uses and investments on those spaces need someone to facilitate that, because that funding is sitting on different entities, including the private sector. Who facilitates that? Who facilitates the incorporation of food security and also of economic livelihood programs in a settlement development at a neighborhood and a project level? I think there seems to be some of those issues coming. We haven't gone to the issue of the environmental management and aspects. We'll leave that and take the third university. In this case, there are commonalities across these qualifications, which will be the University of South Africa, Professor Prudence Khumalo. If you're online, say, would love to invite you to make an input.
Good afternoon, Chair. Apologies, I have a problem with my video. The camera is not working properly. I tried to put my picture just for the sake of making up for that video. But good afternoon to all the presenters and all the attendees. Thank you so much for the opportunity to just give a brief presentation on what our human settlements program looks like. Please, Chair, if you can confirm if my presentation is visible.
Oh yes, Prof, it is visible, thank you.
Great, so what we have at the University of South Africa is the Bachelor of Administration in Human Settlements Management. I so happen to be the program coordinator for this degree. So what perhaps let me just go to the briefly what I'm going to touch in this session is just to introduce you to the background of this program, how it came about, its composition. I also want to talk about strengths and how it differs also to other programs of its nature. I will then also try to look at some opportunities for growth within our space. In terms of introduction, we launched this program in 2015 as a result of the conversations that the Department of Public Admin was having with the National Department of Human Settlements. The drive being that there was a need to capacitate the sector in the area of human settlements management, and our department happened to take up the challenge, and we worked with the National Department to come up with this program. We had a bit of challenges when we started, but I'm happy now that currently from as low numbers as 10 when we started, when we launched the program, we are currently sitting at 1,266 students, but this will also, I'll highlight later, it comes with its own challenges, colleagues. But in terms of our composition, ours is fundamentally a public admin degree, however, with a specialization in human settlements. So these are some of the courses that our students have to do as part of the curriculum. In the first year, you see quite a number of modules coming from even other departments, which are not necessarily our own. But fundamentally, you see issues of ethics coming in, the structuring and functioning of public services. This is key. We want our students to know the space where they're operating in. In the second level, they have to do the following. the African challenge, people in the environment. They have to understand the principles of business management, general management, and the courses that I've highlighted in red are the core modules that distinguish this one from our general admin, public admin program. Then in the third year, we have land and housing. We have got public human resource management. We have public financial administration and management. We have the reflective public administration, which basically deals with research, which introduces our students to research so that they are able to also carry out research as practitioners, as public servants. Now, let me just run through the aims. So the aim of the qualification is to equip human settlements practitioners in all the spheres of government and public entities with relevant education on the management of human settlements, to produce graduates who are able to apply fundamental aspects, principles and procedures of financial accounting. It is expected of our students that they be able to manage policy implementation, and with regards, of course, to the sector, and to also adhere to compliance applicable to housing laws and regulations. We also, through this program, try to ensure that our students understand the fundamental principles of ethics. You know, in the public sector, it has been a huge challenge. The issue of ethics has been a huge challenge, and we try at as early as possible in our curriculum to introduce students to issues of ethics. But importantly, we also want to equip our students to think critically and be able to come up with innovative ways of addressing human settlements challenges. And the degree lays the foundation for career advancement and further studies in the fields of public administration and human settlements management. Students who obtain this qualification will also be able to contribute to theory, in other words, to knowledge production once they move into higher qualifications. I think is quite the uniqueness of our program is that it's one of its kind, which is fully offered online. And the content basically focuses more on managerial aspects of human settlements. It's unlike engineering, built environment, urban geography, etc. While the focus is human settlement graduates from the program can function actually within a wider public administration environment and also within the non-governmental organization sector space. But Chair, please allow me to just give you the other side of this program, the challenges that come with it. We have had discussions, of course, you would know, Chair, dating back, I think 2015 there, 2016 thereabout, around the issue of student placements. I think the only solace with our kind of program is that we do not only have full-time students, but we are also equipping people already employed in the sector. As this picture can convey, that we currently in the year 2022, we have 337 students who are already employed. So we're equipping people who are already earning a salary, making them to function better. However, we still have got a number of unemployed, which is almost 800. So it's very critical that the issue of absorption within the sector and other areas, other sectors is addressed. How best do we ensure that our students do not sit back with the with their qualifications. But once they've qualified, there is an easy passage from studying to really exercising and practicalizing whatever knowledge they would have obtained. But in terms of our looking at the challenges, because the space that we are in is also, it's not stationary, it's not static. There is a lot of things happening around the human settlement space. So we want, in terms of our improvement, we're planning to introduce planning and land use management. The work is already underway to try and make sure that we just beef up our qualification with these aspects. And also, we are also looking into climate-induced challenges. With the increase of climate change disasters, related disasters, it is important that we also prepare our students for these kind of challenges in this place.
If you can,
of course.
Yeah, if you can just
yes,
wrap
Prof.
up within a minute, yes.
Oh, that's about the end, Prof. In terms of opportunities and growth, we're also contemplating introducing short learning programs that will target people who are already in the sector who may not have time for a fully fledged qualification in human settlements management. That's just about it in terms of our qualification. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Chair. I'll end here.
Thank you very much, Prof. Khumalo, for that important information. I will request that if you've got comments or questions, the audience, both online and also in the venue, just note those. Of course, there are some which are coming already online. There are already questions coming up. Because after the presentations, immediately after them, we're gonna first take comments from the university graduates, one per university, and then after we will then take the questions that are coming from the floor, and in that session, Ms. Rasetlako will be coming in to facilitate that part of taking off the questions for response. Let us, without much ado, invite. Something to note at this point is that different from other presentations of the Mandela University in Bloemfontein, the one qualification at UNISA is within a single department of administration, and it is taught within that department. It is therefore a specialization on an existing public administration program. One might even say that that could be saying that it is therefore already provided for in the public service recruitment processes, because that qualification is one of the primary requirements for people to work in the public service, including others, your development studies. So it is therefore recognized by the Department of Public Administration if it is sitting in public administration. But then what it could be meaning is that the graduates in that program would add value in the human settlement sector by virtue of the specialization. So it's clear that the qualifications are not necessarily at the same level of content. We will therefore then invite maybe first Dr. Myeni from University of KwaZulu Natal, because the focus is on undergrad before we come to the University of Free State. Dr. Myeni, the focus is in the main on the undergraduate qualifications. I do know you offer up to a doctoral level, but you can just take your 10 minutes. Over to you.
My name is Vincent Myeni. I'm standing in on behalf of my colleague, Professor Chipungu, who, because of so many other duties in the university, was unable to make it to the workshop. But I hope he is going to join us online. Well, in the interest of time, I'm just going to jump into the presentation, which is actually as follows. Well, the overview of the presentation is as follows. We are going to be looking at the competencies as per the instruction by the workshop planners. We look at the curriculum, and then we look at job description that are normally given to our graduate that we produce at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in the discipline of housing. Well, the chair has actually indicated to me that I need to focus on the undergraduate program, but I think with your permission, Chair, allow me to produce or to present all 4 qualifications that we have or that we offer at the university. We offer a bachelor's degree in housing. It's a 3-year degree. We also have an honors in housing development, which is a 1-year program. We have a master's degree in housing development, which is a 1-year program, and it is research-based. We have a PhD in housing. Well, this is how we were able to structure our competencies. The construction and infrastructure is one of the competencies that our graduates actually come out with. Here we look at the elements of housing construction. Here we talk of construction technology, we talk of construction economics, we talk of housing infrastructure delivery, we talk of project packaging, we talk of project management, we talk of housing maintenance, we talk of layout and subdivision, we talk of tendering process. The next competence that we identified that our graduates come out with, it is housing policy and governance. Here, it is where we teach our students on housing policy, development plans, housing legislations, housing programs, delivery systems, for example, the subsidy programs that are in place that were introduced by our government. The history of housing. In other words, we also even contextualize the challenges that housing and human settlements operate under. The third competence, it is actually housing management and implementation. Here we present to students issues of human resources. This is where our graduates are able to appoint a team of professionals who are going to take part in the projects that are implemented. We talk of financial management, we talk of risk identification, analysis, and risk management plan. We talk of quality control in the delivery of housing. We talk of information and technology. We talk of legal requirements. Here we talk of an HPRC, we talk of the Constitution and the provisions that are in the Constitution in as far as housing is concerned. We talk of program management. We teach students on progress reporting and communication. We teach students on program development and funding proposals. The fourth competence that we have identified, it is professionalism and ethics. In this case, our students are able to engage in community or with communities. Each year they can run workshops or they can facilitate workshops. They participatory workshops and seminars. They also take part in dispute resolution. They are well versed with that. Continuous learning is what we encourage, and because we have introduced postgraduate qualifications, we encourage our students to go to as far as doing honors, masters, and PhD. And then we also equip them when it comes to client management or stakeholder engagement in as far as in the field of housing is concerned. Okay, the next, it is our curriculum. And our curriculum, you'll find that it is multidisciplinary, as most of our colleagues have just indicated in various universities. These are the courses that we offer in the 3-year undergraduate program. First year, you will be doing housing technology 1A, housing theory and practice 1A, intro to community development theory, introduction to economic concepts. In the second semester, you'll be doing housing tech 1B, housing theory and practice 1B, institution on development 1B, and we also teach students on issues of management. In the second year of study, we offer the following modules: housing technology 2A. You'll find that housing technology is one of our majors. Housing Theory and Practice 2A, Development Theories, Human Habitat. And then in the second semester, we offer our students Housing Technology 2B, Housing Theory and Practice 2B, Construction Economics, and Project Planning. In the third year of study, we offer our students Housing Theory and Policy, Sustainable Human Settlements, that is the first semester, Estate Development and Management, and in the second semester, we offer our graduates or our students Housing Implementation and Management. We offer them Research Techniques in Housing, and then we offer them Project Management for Housing. Right. This is our honors program, which is going to be introduced in 2023. It is a one-year program. The first semester is very busy. There, students are taught advanced housing theory and practice, advanced housing policy and finance, advanced housing implementation, research methods in housing, and then in the second semester, we offer modules like advanced project management and evaluation, residential layout and subdivision. Housing research project is produced by our students. Well, in terms of occupation and job description, this is where we found it very interesting because we got this from most of our graduates. We call them housing practitioners. Most of our graduates, they occupy various positions in various departments, national, provincial, and even municipalities. They are directors, they are housing directors, they are housing managers, they are project managers and monitors, they are housing coordinators, they are even consultants. Some of them start businesses, and they do what is called housing research and development. Most of them, they occupy positions like housing officers in municipalities, and housing consumer educators is what they can offer as well. And on that basis, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Myeni. Thank you for that. We can say that the qualification education then is established. Understandable, so it has been there for some time. I can also attest that I interviewed one of your graduates as a deputy director in the provincial government of SNK. When came along with some of the guys who were selected for the position. He held a master's in housing from UKZN some few years back. So it's an established qualification. And I can also attest to the point that you are making that some of the graduates have already ventured into business after undergoing internship programs and working in certain areas. Yeah, I think we noted that the difference around these qualifications, and you have already kind of designated them as housing practitioners. Yes, already, because the qualification is established. We do want to take note of that. We will take our last university, because I'm informed that Professor Samaya may not be able to join us. We'll take Mr. Thomas Stewart from University of Free State for an
introduction so long. Our course was spawned from urban and regional planning. It is only a postgraduate course. It's an honors course. It empowers people both academically and practically. That enables them to both articulate into practice or into a master's research and later on a PhD should they wish to. Both of those also offered. Our general approach is that our students should have a firm theoretical basis, because that's what you revert to when you get stuck in practice and policy. They then also get a sound policy grooming and implementation skills that are combined into the course. Where do our students come from? And I'll get into the detail now. Our students come out of a range of disciplines. They come from architecture, sociology, geography. There are planners who've studied at other institutions who have a 3-year planning qualification and then end up with our honors degree. Okay, you can go to the next slide. I'm going to deal with our competency levels, our generic competencies, core competencies, functional competencies, and that will be my presentation. At our competency, next slide, please. At our competency level 1, we believe we need to get to an awareness of and a basic understanding of terminology and concepts, and the ability to source further information and insights when required in the work environment. Level 2 needs to be a good understanding or an ability to apply. And then level 3 is to apply or engage with the area of competency with the increasing degrees of mastery and sophistication. I must just note, thanks to my academic head of department, Professor Myeni Campbell, who assisted in compiling this. She's unfortunately left, I see. Our next slide, please. At the generic competency levels, we have on the left, critical thinking, interpersonal relations and communication, communications, leadership, professionalism, and ethical behavior. Colleagues, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the details of each of these ones. Just to note that overlying our competencies are a range of attributes. We've just gone through an exercise where our teaching and learning department, I'm not sure what they call themselves, whether they're a department or, but our teaching and learning people identified all the attributes in each one of our modules in natural sciences. We are in the Faculty of Natural Sciences. And the competency, the attributes that they measured was critical thinking, problem solving, written communication, oral communication, ethical reasoning, community engagement, and entrepreneurial mindset. Now, the one area most of our modules needs to work on is the entrepreneurial mindset, interestingly enough. And tongue in the cheek from this morning's discussion, had our students been more entrepreneurial, they might be the guys who go out and sell the window frames and go into the brick business. No, I hope they'll be at a level where they actually coordinate the delivery of human settlements. We can go to the next slide, please. Our competencies then, bearing in mind, coming out of urban and regional planning, again on the left, and then the units that they're covered in is settlement history and theory, theory and public policy, sustainable cities, placemaking, institutional and legal frameworks, environmental management, transportation, land use and infrastructure planning, integrated development, and land economics. On the right-hand side, you can see how they link up the history of housing policies and human settlement development approaches, the global and local institutional frameworks. I need to just say, in our teaching, we believe we should empower our students and have them equipped to work in government sector, private sector, and the NGO sector. That is important. And I think that for obvious reasons, we've seen that if we rely too much on one of those sectors, employment does become a problem. The global and local institutional frameworks, important that, you know, the global and local institutional frameworks, I think it's been said, and it's also attended to at some of the other institutions. Our students, we believe, we also draw students from the subcontinent, not just within the framework of the South African policy, but from the subcontinent. And we believe our students should be able to go back to SADC and the rest of Africa and the rest of the world and be able to operate as human settlement practitioners. The RSA institutional framework for the development of human settlements, and an important thing that is becoming more and more critical in our current time is climate change, environmental planning, disaster management, regenerative approaches to the built environment. The role of the human settlement practitioner, we also pay attention to what has this person actually got to do It's one thing of learning all of this, and we do that in one of our courses is focused specifically on packaging a project, and I'll deal with it again, that is so-called bankable. So it's a project that is packaged for a real implementation. Human settlement strategies and programs, procurement and subsidy schemes. Okay, what I've just mentioned is covered again in the next slide, please. The functional competencies. Survey and analysis. Students need to be able to go to a town and do an analysis, find the necessary sources through Stats-SA, through the homeowners, through the household survey, through GIS systems. Yes, we cannot go into depth in any of these things, but they get exposed to it, they get a feel for it, and obviously, if they then need it, they are just being exposed to it, and they can further their knowledge in that regard. Strategic assessment, local area planning. Important there that in the specific subject at stake, our basic practice subject, they get exposure to the roles and responsibilities of all the auxiliary disciplines, right through from the land surveyor. And the first presentation we had dealt with the planning process. Our students need to understand where it starts with the geotechnical survey. We normally explain it as start at the bottom, start below the surface, go to the surface, then go to the built environment, and then go to the social environment, and understand what each of these layers mean, who the disciplines are involved, and how these disciplines contribute to creating a human settlement. Our layout design, and then all of this accumulates in project planning and project and/or development management or implementation. And this then accumulates to what we believe is human settlements education. And that is it from my side. Is there one more slide? I don't think so. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, again, there is an honors program which is sitting in the Department of Urban and Regional Planning and specialization in human settlements, more similar in terms of structure with the UNISA program that is sitting on a particular department. But again, the difference could be that it's also multidisciplinary in terms of the areas of competences that it is addressing. We have that. We are gonna move. Thanks for the presentation to the universities representatives. Thanks for that. We'll be moving. In fact, there are questions, that things that are coming also to my mind as the presentations are going. Maybe just to mention those that these qualifications have come at different times in the space of the human settlements, housing and human settlement transformations in South Africa, and at different levels of maturity in terms of the issues being raised in this seminar around the graduate placement, their ability to enter labor market. So they are not necessarily at the same levels of maturity. I think it's something that we might want to note, but we'll be getting comments from the graduates themselves in terms of what because why I'm raising that, we might need to separate between a program which where graduates are unable to enter the labor market, as if that more like a program, like there is a mismatch in terms of competencies that are generated by a program. So one is trying to run with that. And a program that is affected by a general unemployment issue in South Africa, not only in the humanitarian sector. I think we need to make a distinction between the two, because my earlier comments was about a program that was introduced to respond to specific challenges facing the sector within a deliberative and collaborative curriculum design methodology, where the expectation or the understanding with that, once those graduates come through, they would automatically find their way into the labor market. Of course, understanding not as in job reservation, but to undergo the necessary training that will lead them to being securing employment in the 3 spheres of government and even in NGOs and the private sector where human development programs are undertaken. That is one issue that we're dealing with. We're trying to find that issue, hence this question of what can you do with what you know? It has been, the university have presented the knowledge areas and core competencies. I think we'll invite comments at this point from a graduate, a graduate available from Mandela University, just to comment on what he or she can do with what he acquired or she acquired in the program within 2 minutes. Then go to University of Fort-APARTHEID, go to University of KwaZulu Natal. Maybe when you respond, you might also want to share briefly within half a minute, what do you see as a barrier of entry in a practical sense as you are trying to secure placement? What that experience, what is a barrier of entry that you have picked up as we are searching a job? If you can do that, we'll start with Mandela University, followed by University of Fort-APARTHEID, and then UKZN within 2 minutes. I'll hand over this part. Thereafter, we will also have the colleagues from the universities to respond to those comments, because already the universities have also gone further to indicate areas of program enhancement. Because once a program has been established, it goes a process of review and needs to be adjusted. It can't be as it was designed forever. It has to respond to the issues of the day. So that could be another issue. So it will be important those comments to be made. Let's take Mandela University, and if Sulu can handle that, we'll take the 5 universities and then allow the panel colleagues to respond to that.
Thank you, Prof. Nelson Mandela University graduate. Any questions, comments?
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, Prof. Thanks very much for this opportunity. For those who don't know me, my name is Rohwataura. And for those who know me, my name is still Rohwataura. So I just want to depart and then say I'm a proud alumni of Nelson Mandela University. I did the 4-year degree and completed, I think, in 2019. So let me start maybe on the issue of the mismatch of the competencies. You know, so my understanding since I graduated is that the posts are being advertised, but all the listed competencies, they are the ones which Nadia was presenting. Our colleague from Fort-APARTHEID was presenting. Our colleague from Free State was presenting. However, they will require a certain course, public admin or planning, you know. So hence you could hear from the students what we're asking maybe to go on the off-ramp. What we're asking from the national department is not all the students to go and work at the national department. The national department has got 6 entities. And then after the 6 entities, we've got local, provincial, government. What we can do is to say, when you advertise those posts, be clear in terms of what type of qualification you want. Because in terms of the competencies, in terms of the people, the kind of people you want is the people who have graduated with this degree. That's what we want, a reservation to say human settlement, that's what you require, not any other related degree. You know, it must be specific to human settlement. So, okay, now I'm in practice, I must state that. So what can I do? what I found about the graduate of human settlement when we get into practice, it's easier even for us to climb the ladder first because we understand the process. I don't need someone to come and explain to me what is NHBRC. You don't need to learn that, you know. So all the role players, you already understand them and what is their individual functions and how you coordinate them, bring what we call sustainable integrated human settlement. Because you could have noted from the presentation of the first speaker on the exposition of the human settlement processes, and Prof, you touched on it, SI Submarine, was that out of all of those processes, who's going to be managing those processes? Because a planner is doing their layout and say, hey, I'm done. So that's why the process will take 20 years because there is no one who's managing the whole process. Hence, we've got this degree of human settlement. SI Submarine, I think we didn't touch on the issue of the private sector, although we did touch. I must say that my first employment was on Safcol, which is a state-owned company like a private sector. They've got CSI projects and so forth. So there I was responsible for social infrastructure. So we're building clinics, we're building community halls. So when you do enumerations and so forth, you need someone who's got understanding of the socio-political knowledge and also the practical knowledge of maintaining that human settlement, because it doesn't end at building. There is maintenance part, and that's where we come in. So I must state that SI Submarine, sorry, this is for the last time, to say, I don't think the competencies and everything is wrong. I think we just need a department to tell their entities and everyone that they are graduates who are called human settlement. That's all we're asking, not to be spoon-fed. Thanks.
Thank you, Ropiwa, a graduate from UKZN or Fort Hare.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mine is very short. My name is Lakanya Mkapukiso. I'm from the University of Fort Hare. I'm a graduate in human settlements. My brother, the points that you've just touched on, I'm just gonna say that you've touched almost to the points that I wanted to touch on. We are seeking, Prof, a recognition of the degree. We need our employers and our future employers to know what we're capable of and what is it that we are carrying. Because at times you get to apply for a lot of jobs and a lot of positions and vacancies, but still you get an email that still asks you about what is it that you can do, or what is it that you are capable of. You see a lot of people that have graduated in engineering, town planning, and etc. They go straight to the fields that they've studied for. But when it comes to human settlements, as my brother has said there, that we are seeking recognition because a lot of people don't understand what is it that we can do. For myself, I had a time whereby I was trying to find a place for myself in PCM, and a lot of employers said to me that in PCM, we don't understand what is it that you are capable of. We see that you qualify for this, but we don't know what is it that you can do. Well, from Fort Hare, as Mr. Rob has said, Mr. Rob is our senior lecturer at Fort Hare. Yes, Mr. Mongwe, as he has said and elaborated on the modules that we do, we come from a very integrated space. There's so much that is within the package of what we do. We have public administration, project management, we've got a lot of things, statistics, we've got law. My point is, there's so much that we are capable of, but we are still seeking the department to make sure that future employers there too, they understand that there's so much that we can do. And we're seeking recognition that as we keep on graduating as students, as we are graduating as students in human settlements, we are seeking that doors can be open, and doors can only open when people begin to understand what is it that we're capable of and what is it that we are doing. Thank you.
Sanbonan, right? Siphelele Buteleza from graduates from UKZN Bachelor of Housing. One of our challenges we have, and in the human settlement from municipality to the provincial and national as well. I believe it's the issue of maybe others, they require the candidature in order to practice some of the functions in the human settlement, maybe maybe in the projects management as well, of which I believe the IHSA is working very hard in order to liaise with all the provincial, national, and municipality in order to cater for the housing, because we do have many housing practitioners who others at home, others in the provincial and private and in other sectors who are practicing. Thank you. I think my other colleague wants to elaborate. Yeah, thank you.
Greetings. If Master of Ceremonies can allow me to also allude to what my colleague is also pertaining to. The name is Uncebo Masondo, also a graduate of UKZN in the degree of Bachelor of Social Sciences in Housing, and also a master's student in the same course. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much, and we are very appreciative of this opportunity which we've been granted by the Institute, and also the opportunity also be gathered here in this auspicious occasion. And if I may comment on a very few things, I think the most challenge that we have as graduates of the degree, and I think this is across the board in the whole of South Africa, as we've also been in touch in recent months with graduates from the Eastern Cape and also from Free States and also all over the country, is that the main challenge we have with our degree or our qualification is the fact that it is not really recognized when you actually want to get employment. As much as we can also articulate how much we know about the sector and where we can actually fit in, it is still very hard for the employer to actually find a place whereby they can literally place us within the built environment. And that is something that I believe the National Department of Human Settlements should also take upon itself to emphasize on, and also play a major role in realizing that all sectors in terms of the built environments realize this opportunity or this predicament which we are faced with, because it is really, really, really damaging. And also it is giving us a hard time, because we then get discouraged, and we also get discouraged to be encouraged to others to make sure that they also enter into the sector. I think if I may also use this example, my friend who's here is also an employee rather of the KZN Department of Human Settlements like myself, and he's placed in, sorry. Okay, all right, so I'll try and be brief. But then basically the one problem and one issue we have is that of all the graduates of the department, we then find ourselves in a predicament of not being able to be placed after our internships, because the fact that we don't have a board which we belong to. And I really believe that this establishment or this initiative is a one step going towards the direction. And that is what I want to say today. Thank you very much, but there's still so much to be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What is coming through strongly is the request that the qualification be recognized. So there's one more graduate from UKZN that has asked to comment or ask a question, but I will only grant you permission if you are going to speak something different, totally different from what has already been said. Thank you.
Evening, this is Halalisan Ngobo from UKZN. Also, I'm a graduate, but now I'm coming in a finance department within the course itself. The thing that I've noticed, I'm not part of human settlement. I'm employed as an intern in a private sector in construction. So what I realized is the fact that with us not being recognized, it makes it very hard for myself to explain my competencies, which Mr. Myeni has been alluding to to my employer. So it's very hard for me to say that I'm a project manager. or I am a built environment specialist doing what's exactly within the industry of construction. So if we are to say we are involving private sectors, let the constructors or construction companies also be part of this podium, have them knowing what we're bringing into the table, because that is very important for us.
Thank you very much. I wish to say that this is the first part of the workshop because a lot of work needs to be done. We've made a note of what Rofiwa has said about the mismatch of competencies. We'll look into that. And we will also be engaging more and more with all of you graduates. And also please kindly send more comments, more questions online, and we will also take them forward when we plan the next program. It will be a build-up from this one. We will not repeat what has been said, and I will also report back to my principals. Prof, are we closing for comments and questions?
Yeah, I think we may want just to take some 2 minutes for comments, not from students now, because we gave that opportunity to them.
Sorry, Prof.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, Prof.
Okay.
Just to ask one question that has actually been very triggering me, and I believe this is the right platform to ask this question. Prof, I got to Forte in 2018, and then when I got to Forte, you know, I had really hard time explaining to my mom that what is it that I'm doing, you know, because when we move from the places that we move in, for I myself, I'm coming from Tankeni Village in East London. It's an informal settlement. So when a parent takes their child to university, or you work your way upwards to university, everyone is expecting you to come back to graduate, to be an engineer, to be a teacher, and to be a what? My question, Prof, is I had a very hard time having to travel from East London to Alice, but not telling my parents what is it that I'm doing, because they couldn't understand the importance of what I'm going to bring to the table. And while I was there, I was not funded for the whole 4 years of what I was studying in human settlements. And so my question is today, when I got to the program, I started Googling just to carry an investigation to look into what I'm going to do. And then what I saw was there were to be funds and sponsors to the degree so that we can begin to work out instead of NSFAS, you know. So we were promised that. And then the degree was marketed and everything. But my question is, Prof, can there be funds allocated to support us as people who are doing human settlement so that we do not rely on NSFAS or NSFAS? You know, because a lot of times NSFAS comes in with a lot of disappointments, and then human settlement as a department, it's supposed to recognize the people that are trying to do and to bring to the table a development in human settlement. So my question is today, what happened to the sponsors that were promised? Because when we walked into this line, we were promised that actually we were to walk on the greener pastures, but only to find out is there's no money, there was nothing. Then we start dropping out, because we started losing faith. So my question is, where is the financial assistance that we were promised when we got in here? Because I myself, for one, I'm busy looking for a job because I'm already a graduate, but still I have to explain to everyone, what is it that I can do? And then everyone has to understand. But when I look back and trace back, I'm like, actually, this human settlement thing has brought me nothing but frustration and depression, because I started being hungry at Forte, and now I'm outside still. I still have to explain to this person, but actually I have this human settlement. It's like, okay, what can you do? What is it that you're doing? But my point is, can we try to find a way as a Department of Human Settlement to recognize the importance of human settlements? And once that happens, I believe that there would also be space to absorb the people that have graduated in this to work in human settlements. Not just only in government, but also in the private sector. Because only when something happens in the government, then the private sector can begin to realize, actually, this is evident and it's happening. So I'm just trying to say that, Prof, just like any other disciplines, there should be funds allocated to support people who are doing human settlements, because it's really not easy.
Thank you. We felt that funding is a big issue for the qualification. We will take your comment, please.
said I'm not a student. So
Yes.
Thank you very much. I should also disclose I'm not a student. I'm an academic. So I just wrote a love letter, but I'll try to be as brief as possible. From what I picked up, students are questioning the accreditation of their qualifications. I think that's the main thing. And I'm going to quote two definitions of accreditations. What accreditation, the main goal of accreditation is to ensure that institutions of higher learning meet acceptable levels of quality. The second definition says accreditation is undertaken to ensure that all programs as well as assessments that are offered by the institution of higher learning, they meet the standards of NQF framework. Again, lastly, the self-evaluation, external quality evaluation in respect to higher education programs for quality assurance and quality improvement. So how far is the process of accreditation and who checks the relevance of human settlement qualification in the institution of higher learning? For example, in the built environment, we have so many councils. We have quite a lot, CMP, we have for architects, we have for landscaping, EXA for engineering, QS for quantity surveyors, CBE. But what are we saying about the plea and the cry for students? Who actually checks the quality assurance of these qualifications? And for example, as someone who also has a background in the construction management profession, part of the duties or part of the requirements is you should be registered with a council, for example, ACC, SMP, you become of better advantage. So what are we saying about the students? And again, what are we saying about this qualification in terms of accreditation? Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, my name is Selo Letawana. I'm not a student. I'm coming from the Mbanga Metropolitan Municipality. Yes, my question is related to the question that this gentleman has asked. At a particular stage, we saw the Minister of Higher Education saying the certain institutions, their particular subjects or programs are not up to standard. Then they were put under pressure that they must bring some changes. I've listened to the presentation of different institutions. There is quite, they are not similarly, there's quite distinct, they're different. Are we going to see some form of alignment in terms of, let's say, that particular accreditation taking place? And I would also like to know what is the South African quality, something like that. Will we see that venture into that particular space? If I can comment, I'm coming from the University of Free State. I've graduated there. I've got masters. But if I can have an opportunity to go back to school, I don't think I'll go to University of the Free State because it's too much that what I've heard there in terms of you'll take the whole 5 years or 6 years. I think I can go to Natal. Yes, it's intimidating. Prof.
Prof, Dr. Bayard would like to make a comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. I have to start off by saying that I'm really very concerned by what the graduates are talking about in terms of the lack of understanding of the sector departments of what the human settlements curriculum is all about. I'd like to think that this institute has a lot of work to do in that regard. And I believe that the national department and all the human sector departments and all of them from provincial, local, all of the different, and the entities have to be informed and conscientized about exactly what these graduates have undergone, what they have studied, and what it is that they are capable of. And I agree that when those advertisements are set out for any job that in the human settlement sector, and I'm not talking, for instance, of finance or any of those, but for all the other elements, that they should ask for a human settlements degree. And or else all the work that all of these universities are doing would be for naught. And the students are definitely going to be compromised. So I really believe, Chair, Prof, that a lot of work needs to be done, and they need to ensure that they start putting, prioritizing this degree and the students who have put such a lot of effort into it. The second issue, Chair, I just would like to know what efforts are being done are being made by the universities to assist the human settlements professionals to be prepared to plan on how, for example, to deal with a catastrophe. And we've all been through COVID. We know how it just hit us like a ton of bricks, and everybody was just floundering all over the place. So it was really very difficult. And I think it's very important that some level of preparedness must be brought into the curricula. And the next issue is that, and I really would like to say that my question is being asked within the context of adding to the body of knowledge, particularly theoretical knowledge, in the spirit of empowerment, and also to enable an in-depth understanding of the human settlements for the human settlement graduates. So in this regard, Prof, I would like to know what efforts are being made in academic curricula to familiarize the human settlement student body about the legislative and policy impacts of the pre-1994 era. I believe that the inclusion of some level of the pre-94 legislative and policy issues can assist the human settlement professionals to understand where we come from and what challenges the national policies were actually meant to address. And I'd really like to see that coming through, so that as professionals coming out of this degree, that they will be able to have that kind of background when they deal with the issues of human settlements. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Very quickly and briefly, Sipokazi.
Without repeating what everybody has said, I think mine is just to really lean into what Mr. Stewart had said around the generic competencies. You know, we don't focus a lot on those, and those are personal attributes. You know, it's how you show up in a career, in a professional context. And I would love an opportunity where we start zooming into those elements, you know, because we probably call those soft skills, but those are power skills. And those complement your technical skills. And my hope, and actually my goal through the Institute, is to drive such programs. This is what I've been doing, working with young people who are struggling to find employment. It is all about how you show up, you know? And yes, I mean, a simple example, this is a networking opportunity. This is a learning opportunity. And what we'd want to see is young people really engaging with such opportunities instead of just hanging around outside. So it's those little things. And it's also understanding the career journey. The career journey is not linear. You know, you don't just get out of school and then boom, you start climbing. You know, I started in government. I went into the NGO space. Now I'm doing like freelancing work. So it's also understanding that the journey, any journey, is not just straightforward. But what is very important is how you show up. And nobody can teach you that. There's what you call now 21st century skills. I beg you, go Google what are 21st century skills. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Prof, Mr. Buertas would like to make comments, but I need permission from you and an indication whether we're closing on the floor for comments and questions.
Yeah, the time we've gone over the time already into the next session that should be commencing soon. I know there are a lot of questions, and maybe it'll take me, suppose, within a minute, because we need to wrap up with the panelists. I need to guide that process as well. Then we close. Something we need to note, this is just a 1.5 hour session. We cannot deal with all issues today. We wanted to get a taste of what the issue is around these qualifications. And we can already isolate issues of differences between the qualifications from different universities. we can already pick areas of emphasis from graduates of different universities because they are not at the same level. Let's take Mr. Bow so that we can just wrap up with the panelists themselves or the presenters. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Prof. One thing I don't want to do is step on university toes. But last I remember, I read an article where 800,000 graduates in South Africa are unemployed. So, you know, we're talking about a specific skill that you have. But remember, there are many, many students that have so much hope that when they go to university, once they finish university, that they will have a job. But our economy is not allowing it to grow as much. So many times, maybe you'll find that somebody will say to you, what does a human settlements degree mean? But in order to get an excuse not to employ you. So it's not necessarily not well articulated. But I think many times it's just more a courtesy not to insult you when they say to you, there is no job. So we've really got to look at what do we do to stimulate the economy and stimulate skills. And obviously many children or youth that leave school believe that going to a university guarantees a job. You're wrong. I'm sorry to say. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Bose. We're wrapping up. I want to recognize the comments also online. I think Yolanda Shlaba was making some comments out of the first two presentations by Mandela University and Forte, but his comments are really about, though he starts to compare the two, which is not the primary purpose of this discussion, because they were never designed to be similar to start with. They were meant to respond to issues affecting the sector as understood by those universities who have undertaken research. Because when you develop a program, you do some kind of a feasibility study. You don't do it because you are told to do it. You must do a labor market survey to understand exactly where the qualifications will be fitting and contributing. These universities, there's a SAQA framework on how you develop a qualification for it to be accredited. So we cannot even attempt to compare these qualifications because they were meant to respond to issues as understood by those universities based on their capabilities also. Hence, they are sitting in different faculties as well. The universities were trying to respond to a myriad of issues affecting the sector, but optimizing on their capabilities, which are already existing or established, like urban and regional planning, the built environment in Mandela University, housing program at UKZN. So I think we noted that comment being made, but the question seemingly asked, whether openly or silently, is what are you bringing to the table? What is it that you can do with what you know? It's what Lakanya is raising. He's being asked by potential employers. And I believe that IPSA has to respond to that with the universities. I think maybe as a path forward, we'll have to create a template as IPSA now under the subcommittee of CPD and career guidance for the 5 universities to present in a particular template that is going to distill the issues we want, because we want to present that to the labor market, to the potential employers as a response of the institute on the question being asked to Lakanya. What is it that you can do? His family is asking the same question. What did you study? You're not a social worker, you're not a psychologist. What is it exactly that you studied? I want us to dispense with that one as colleagues are going to comment in conclusion. The second issue coming up very clearly is that the IPSA has to approach the ministry for a pronouncement of recognition of the qualification in the sector, for a ministerial determination, if we can call it that way, that the minister will have to, with the MINMAC, have to make a determination and engage the PSA in particular to place the qualification along the primary qualifications in the public service, because it responds to matters that are affecting human settlements in South Africa and other countries. Those primary qualifications that are presented for senior military service to start with, that's where that is recognition. Is not job reservation, it's nothing. Each of the graduates will find their way into those spaces once those qualifications are made. There's nothing government will lose in doing that. There's nothing that the sector will lose in recognizing a qualification that is supporting its own vision in the NDP. We'll approach the ministry on that one. That one is a low-hanging fruit. It doesn't need, whether there is unemployment or not, mention the qualification within your job recruitment process across the sector, where the human development grant, HSD3 and USD3 is dispersed. We understand because provinces use equitable share, but to execute a human grant, I think that is the determination that must be made at Myeni approach of the role of the institute. I wanted to dispense with those to allow, as the last point to make is that that submission will be making to the minister as the institute. That one. Two, we will work with the academics forum, Thomas Stress, the academics forum in the institute, to get these input within a particular template. Dr. Myeni was almost coming closer in terms of even defining designations for this, for their qualifications, which is well established, and even indicating a sample of job descriptions. If there is someone with an OD background, we may want to request a pro bono service of a company which can assist us in designing a sample of job descriptions based on the core competences. We don't have money as IHSA, but someone might come to our favor and sponsor that area, so that we produce even job descriptions such that a eThekwini Metro doesn't find it difficult to create a job title when they review their organizational structures, because some of them are saying that they are not waiting for a council. They just want to know how to call these graduates and how to package their competencies in an HR process of recruitment through a job description that goes out. They say that to me, unfortunately. So that's why I'm opting eThekwini Metro. They say they listen to the whole conversation that is sophisticated. All they need is for us to tell them what is the title of this job or these jobs, and what would go into the key performance areas of each of those titles. I don't think that's too much to ask for a professional association. I will allow the colleagues, if they're still online, Dr. Wessels, Professor Khumalo, Mr. Mongwe, to make one comment, 1 minute comment as we close, then we come to our colleagues who are with us here. Maybe they've already retired, or yes. Okay, thank you very much to the colleagues online. We understand we took more time than we should. Maybe colleagues who are on or with us in the venue will allow Dr. Myeni and Thomas. Any comment you have, if any, but if not, yeah, still fine.
Thank you, Chair. I think I have 2 points to raise. For me, it is 2 points. The first point is to say this. As people who are actively involved in the sector of housing and human settlements, let us shoot down the narrative that says that the qualifications that are being offered in the universities are a mismatch. I think that my chair over there has alluded to the fact that before a program is offered to students, it goes through a vigorous scrutiny. Practical example is the honors program that we'll be offering next year. We started packaging it in 2013. Starting from 2013 up to now, we've been answering questions by the Department of Human Settlements, by the Department of Higher Education and Training, by the labor market. And we are responding to the needs that they have as a labor market. And therefore, whatever that we are offering it is in line with the challenges that the labor market is facing in as far as the delivery of housing is concerned. That is point number one. And to say that maybe I'm returning to one of my colleagues who spoke about the issue of accreditation. We've got quite a number of public universities in South Africa, and before a program is offered, it has to be accredited. And therefore, if there is any university that offers a qualification that is not accredited, it's a worrying concern for me as an individual and as an academic. Point number two, we are operating in a space of built environment. And most professions and professionals that are operating in the space, they've got professional bodies. And housing and human settlements are the qualifications that don't have professional bodies like councils and all those kind of things. And I think this gathering should actually work towards finding our identity in the space of built environment, because we really need to identify ourselves, or we need to be identified as particular individuals like the rest of the other people that are operating in that particular space. So we need to push these gatherings in as serious as we are supposed to be. And therefore, I think lastly, how you show up by the lady who was seated there, it is all that matters. The skills, the knowledge, the information that you guys have got from universities, it is actually equipping you to help you to go and show them who you are and where you come from and what you are made of. And I always say this to our graduate from UKZN. The moment one door gets opened for you, really, you need to show them who you are. And this start from these soft skills, ethics. Be ethical in everything that you do when you are given that opportunity. Be professional enough so that you get recognition by that particular organization. And if you can really present those soft skills, then the hard skills will follow and they will pave you a way forward. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Doc. Your last comments?
Yeah, just in closing from my side, Chair, I think the sooner we can have consensus at a national level at what the competencies should be, have them well defined, and put them out in the marketplace, the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much to colleagues from the universities who presented, and to also the inputs from the graduates and the students, and also from the floor, the comments made. I'm not sure, Tsolo, we, in terms of the process, I think there are three things from IHSA. One, we have to compile this competency list, even if the qualifications are different and are not that similar. We need to, for each qualification, to have a set of competences, as Dr. Myeni was starting to present. We need the same format for all universities. But then beyond that, we need, if you are possible as a university, to source some support, whether of your university audit department, to translate those competences into jobs and provide some titles. That submission for each university, Forte will need that. Mandela University will need that. I think the second thing was saying that the issue of recognition has been raised by graduates. It's not about asking for work. It is mentioning the qualification. I think as an IHSA board, we have to pursue that with the national department and the ministry, because that is important, that the qualification is not seen as any other in the deployment of equitable share in the sector to execute a human settlement development grant. I think it cannot be any other, the qualification. So that is the second thing. The third thing is clear that we'll have to do ongoing engagement. I think Tsulu was speaking that informally, we do want also to, this product we're gonna do, to present it in a session which will include what is it, the practitioners themselves in the sector. But there are other organizations outside the public sector who are asking some of these questions as well. will be invited. Someone was saying that even the contractors, maybe the implementing agents of the PDAs, the catalytic projects might need to be invited just for them to also be part of that consultative session, where we'll be presenting a product of this workshop as these universities, not start afresh, present them and take up questions that are coming from the potential employers who will do that, I think also as a third step. Let me thank everyone for the contribution and also take responsibility for us going beyond the time. It was the nature of the issue before us, but we're not closing it, we are continuing it. We are here to solve problems. That's why we are alive. That's why we were given a gift of life to live beyond COVID-19, because there are issues that needs to be resolved by us. Thank you very much. We are adjourned for today. I'm informed that we're supposed to be moving to another venue for social networking. I'm not sure whether we're going to dance or what, but seemingly. Thank you very much, colleagues, until tomorrow for the business breakfast at 7:30. We will be eating together tomorrow morning. The breakfast, don't take it in your hotels. Join us, because our program is based on us eating, but also doing some important stuff. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.